Welcome back to episode number 8 of the Bears Talk podcast. It's been a little while, Bears fans, since we last sat down and chatted, and it's been for good reason. We've been doing a lot of work over at bearstalk.com, getting a lot of new features and the layout updated over at the website, and we are super thrilled with how everything turned out. So head over to bearstalk.com and check it out for yourself. We launched a brand new merchandise store over there as well, so you can get your Bears Talk swag. We just launched an incredible King of the North hoodie. You got to check it out. It features QB1, JF1. You know, the true King of the North. Maybe the Bears aren't division champions yet, but we're all bending the knee already to Justin Fields. So go check out that hoodie. We didn't get it up in time for Christmas, but you know you got those gift cards and you're ready to splurge on some Bears gear in advance of a really exciting offseason. So check that out. But it's time to get back here on the podcast circuit, to get back with you guys to talk about what's going to be in a really, really fun offseason. And even though we're still a couple of weeks away from real draft talk, real free agent speculation, we're about to turn the calendar to 2023, both figuratively in the NFL and literally, like in a couple of days. It'll be the 2023 new year. And what better time than right now to talk about some Chicago Bears New Year's resolutions that we think Ryan Poles has to make if he wants to flip this team from worst to first, maybe as early as 2023. So let's get after it, everyone. Welcome back to the Bears Talk podcast. You know, it's been, like I said, it's been a couple of weeks since we were able to sit down and chat. Actually, more like a couple of months. And that's the deal. That's what I signed up for. When I launched bearstalk.com, I knew that it was going to be a big undertaking to get a Chicago Bears fan site the way I want it. A true Bears fan through and through, from when I was a young pup to now being able to cover the team from all angles. I want bearstalk.com to be exactly what you, the Bears fan, want to visit every single day to get your latest news and notes about the Chicago Bears. And we're there. We're there over at Bears Talk. So make sure it's bookmarked, especially as we get into this offseason, which really, I mean, let's be honest. That's what we're all counting down to at this point, right? I mean, you could tell yourself that you still care about the 2022 season, that you're still vested, you're invested, you're interested in what happens this Sunday against the Detroit Lions and next week against the Minnesota Vikings. But you know as well as I do, nobody cares. Nobody cares whether the Bears win or lose. Nobody cares what the final score is. At this point in the 2022 season, Bears fans are honestly hoping just the team stays healthy, Justin Fields stays healthy, and the Bears back themselves into that, at least the number 2 pick overall, which they're holding on to right now through week 16. And maybe even with a little stroke of luck and a little heater here from the Houston Texans, maybe the Chicago Bears end up with the first overall pick. It's not completely out of the zone of possibility. I mean, the Texans, they're playing decent football right now, and their schedule has some favorable opponents over the next 2 weeks that they could potentially squeak out another win, maybe even 2, and the Chicago Bears find themselves somehow, some way, with the first overall pick and Justin Fields already on the roster. I mean, that is the ultimate outcome for the Chicago Bears team. So if you're telling yourself, you're trying to convince yourself that you honestly care about what happens in the next 2 games, you know you're lying to yourself. And that's okay. That's okay. You go on social media, and unfortunately, it's kind of like taboo to say that you don't want the Bears to win a football game, that you want the Bears to lose over the next 2 games for better draft position. It's become almost something of, people jump down your throat and say, "Oh, yeah, football. There's no winning and losing. There's no moral victories. The teams have to build good winning habits and locker room culture." Well, let me tell you something. The Bears already have that. Matt Eberflus has already established a winning culture in Chicago, even with only 3 wins on the scorecard. It sounds crazy to say that. Almost sounds like it doesn't add up, but it does. Look at how the Chicago Bears have played over the last couple of weeks against the Philadelphia Eagles and Buffalo Bills. Forget the final score. Forget what the final score was. Forget the fact that the Bears ended up kind of getting blown out against the Bills, and they couldn't hang on, obviously, and secure a win against the Eagles. But for large portions of both games, the Bears were in it. The Bears had a chance to beat the NFC's number one seed and one of the top teams in the AFC in back-to-back games for a team that is completely decimated by injury. I mean, Justin Fields literally is like a fighter going into a ring with both hands tied behind his back. He's got no one to throw to. I might as well be lining up as a Chicago Bears wide receiver right now. And that would not be a pretty sight, trust me. Velus Jones Jr., yeah, it's great to see him make a couple plays now, but no Chase Claypool, no Darnell Mooney, no Equanimous St. Brown. Like, literally, the Bears are down to 4s and 5s and 6s practice squad guys who might not even be in the NFL next year, and they're still finding a way to be competitive. So if you're looking for a silver lining in these losses, aside from just the fact that they're putting the Bears in a great NFL draft position, the Bears already have the winning culture. Forget this argument that they have to get wins here late in the season in order to build that momentum for 2023. I don't necessarily think that's the case. The Bears are a confident football team right now. The Bears have self-awareness. The guys inside Halas Hall in that locker room, they have self-awareness. They know, like, look, we need more pieces here. You know, we're not a team that if we beat the Buffalo Bills or Philadelphia Eagles or the Minnesota Vikings or the Detroit Lions, we're not a team that suddenly goes from a 3-win team to, oh, we're great. I mean, they know that's not the case. So trying to win the next 2 games, of course, every football team, when you put on the helmet and you put on the pads, you're risking your life. So, of course, you're going to try to win the game. But the reality is, even if they come up short on the scoreboard, the fact that they're going toe-to-toe with some of these really good teams tells me, it should tell you, it should tell the national media that the Chicago Bears are not that far away from being a legitimate playoff team. Yes, I'm not even talking 500 team. I'm talking legitimate playoff team. That's the kind of potential they have with Justin Fields behind center. This guy's been miraculous this year. Remarkable, incredible. Whatever superlative you want to put around Justin Fields, it applies. And he's literally doing it all on his own. And that's why Ryan Poles, he has to get it right this offseason. We're going into the 3rd year of Justin Fields on his rookie contract. Everybody has told you guys throughout the time that Justin Fields' name was called and the debate about whether or not he was going to start as a rookie, that window of opportunity for teams to make a run at a Super Bowl when you have your quarterback on a rookie contract. That's huge. I mean, look at what the Bears are staring at this offseason. They're going to be able to spend big money on free agents at positions of need without having to worry about the Lamar Jackson type of contract situation. Even in New York, the Daniel Jones type of contract situation. In Seattle, a 500 team that looks like they're not too far off either from being an impressive NFC West year-over-year competitor again. Geno Smith is in a contract situation. Those teams are going to be hamstrung because they have to now pay a quarterback. The Bears are still a couple of years from having to worry about that. So this is the time to strike for Ryan Poles before he will have to go through maybe like a second round of kind of minor roster teardown to fit in a Justin Fields contract extension. So these New Year's resolutions are critically important. And Ryan Poles has to find, it's like when we all say every year, this is the year I'm going to lose 15 pounds. This is the year I'm going to go to the gym. That's why gym memberships go way up on January 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, that first week of January. That's why you don't want to go to if you're a regular gym guy, girl, taking that first couple weeks of January, maybe do some home workouts, try to go for a run outside, figure out a way to get your workouts in without going to the gym because you have all the New Year's crowd. It dies off after a couple of weeks. We've all been there. We've all made New Year's resolutions that we don't keep. I mean, the list of my New Year's resolutions that I have failed to keep by the time February rolls around it's an incredibly long list. But Ryan Poles can't be that guy. He can't be the guy who doesn't follow through and actually get the job done because he's got the cap space. The Bears are going to have the most salary cap room in the NFL. They're going to have the most money to spend in free agency. He's going to have the draft leverage, the assets in the NFL draft. He's going to have probably a top 3 pick, maybe, if everything holds steady right now, a top 2 pick. And if the football gods smile down on the Chicago Bears, the Bears could end up with the first overall pick without needing a quarterback in a draft class where there could be a team or two willing to overpay to jump into the 1 spot to draft a guy like Bryce Young or maybe even Will Levis if the draft cycle really blows up in his favor. So Ryan Poles can get the job done as we get toward 2023 and take a team like the Bears, who has struggled to finish in the second halves of these close games because, look, there's a talent deficiency. It's not a want to problem. It's not an effort problem. It's not a culture problem. There is simply a talent deficiency in Chicago. You add talent through free agency and the draft. So here's my 5 resolutions that Ryan Poles has to make and stick to as we get through March and April and into next year's training camp. So we're looking through basically covering almost 3/4 of the 2023 calendar year. First and foremost, and this is going to be almost like a broken record. We've been here before. This is sort of where we were last year this time. Other teams like the Green Bay Packers have been banging this same drum for a very long time. Get weapons for Justin Fields. Please, for the love of God, do not go into training camp with Chase Claypool and Darnell Mooney and a collection of Byron Pringles on your wide receiver depth chart. That is not good enough. It's simply not good enough. I personally think Chase Claypool is going to hit big time next year. He's going to be a guy with a full offseason of work with Justin Fields, the chemistry. Justin Fields is a super smart quarterback. This dude gets it beyond even our level of comprehension of what we think he is. He's better than what you think he is. Him getting a full offseason to work with Chase Claypool to figure out how to make Chase Claypool work, that's dangerous. It's going to be scary. And I have no doubt in my mind that Chase Claypool is going to prove that the investment in him, the second-round pick, which right now is trending as the 33rd pick, and if the Bears end up with the first pick overall, and because the Dolphins forfeited their first, Chase Claypool's that could end up being a first-round value, the 32nd overall pick. I'm still fine with it. I'm still fine with Chase Claypool as the guy who comes to Chicago with that kind of investment. Because think about this. If Chase Claypool was in this year's free agent cycle, a very underwhelming group of free agent wide receivers, if Chase Claypool was in this group, he might be the number 1 wide receiver in free agency. In fact, I think he would be. The only way Chase Claypool would not be the most attractive player in terms of wide receivers this offseason is if a guy becomes available via trade, like we saw last year with A.J. Brown, Tyreek Hill. That's the only way a player like Chase Claypool would get trumped, is if a player like an A.J. Brown who wants a new contract becomes available in trade. And then guess what? You're probably trading more than the second rounder that the Bears traded for Claypool to get a guy like that. Claypool's only 24. He's got the rare combination of size and speed. He's a downfield playmaker. Justin Fields is a downfield quarterback. This is going to be a perfect fit. It just is going to take some time. So Bears fans, don't worry about Chase Claypool's box score right now. He's going to be fine. But, and I'm certain Ryan Poles is thinking the same thing. There's no doubt in my mind Ryan Poles is thinking the exact same thing, that Chase Claypool is the wide receiver 1, that Chase Claypool is the alpha. But it's not enough. He cannot go into the training camp. He cannot go into the rest of the offseason saying that Chase Claypool, mission accomplished. A healthy Darnell Mooney, mission accomplished. We have our top 2 wide receivers in 2023. It's not good enough. What if T. Higgins becomes available on the trade block? The Draft Network did a recent mock draft scenario where the Bears traded out of number 2, slid down to the Bengals first rounder, got T. Higgins, some other things in the mix there. I mean, that would be insane to think that Justin Fields gets T. Higgins, a full offseason of Chase Claypool, a fully healthy contract year, Darnell Mooney. We're talking about the Bears going from a wide receiver group in week 17 that will be Velus Jones and Byron Pringle and whoever, Dante Pettis, whoever, to T. Higgins, Chase Claypool, and Darnell Mooney. Probably in terms of pure talent, the best collection of receivers that the Bears will have had since the Brandon Marshall, Alshon Jeffrey days. And Justin Fields is a better quarterback than Jay Cutler. So who knows what the ceiling would be on the offense if that kind of trade is made. Is it worth going down from 2 to 28, let's say, which is, I think, where this mock draft scenario had the Bears dropping down to? That's up for debate. I think Bears fans on Twitter were kind of furious with the suggestion, but I actually spoke to Jamie Eisner before he published that mock, and I was like, I kind of don't have a reaction to it. Like, if the Bears made that trade, if they traded out of number 2 with the Bengals, they get T. Higgins and a late first-round pick, my reaction is almost neutral. And I think that suggests I'm fine with it. I'm fine if they said no to it. I'd be fine if they did it, because T. Higgins, like I said, you're hoping that you land an offensive playmaker or any player on either side of the ball who can impact the game like a T. Higgins. I think it's a pretty good return if they did something like that. Now, that's more of pipe dream. That's not a fair, that's an unfair New Year's resolution. Part of what makes New Year's resolutions successful is making them realistic. So we want to try to keep this realistic. So T. Higgins, unlikely. What about Brandon Ayuk? San Francisco 49ers, Brandon Ayuk, former first-round pick. He's going into year 4. He's eligible for a new contract. The little caveat with him, which separates him from a guy like A.J. Brown, a guy like DK Metcalf, he has a 5th-year option that the 49ers still have some more leverage with him. He's getting paid first-round money. Those other guys weren't. They didn't have that extra year. It was kind of like their last season in their respective franchises. So the 49ers won't be as desperate, but the 49ers did just give Deebo Samuel a ton of money. They did just trade for Christian McCaffrey, who is essentially like another receiver for them too. They have like no draft picks. So they could be a team that is looking to say, all right, Brandon Ayuk is not a guy that we're going to give a ton of money to anyway. We can use him right now to get picks to make up for the Trey Lance trade, to make up for the Christian McCaffrey trade. I wouldn't rule it out, because Brandon Ayuk is a guy who, I mean, elite skill set. It's just he's played second fiddle to Deebo Samuel. So Brandon Ayuk in Chicago would be the unquestioned, no doubt about it, wide receiver 1. He kind of blends Chase Claypool and Darnell Mooney into one guy. The Darnell Mooney route running with the Chase Claypool, my-balled, high-pointing, 50-50 ball ability. He has a chance to be a special player, especially if you combine him with Justin Fields. So what about that? What about a Brandon Ayuk trade, Ryan Poles? I think that could be on your list of New Year's resolutions. If you're not going to go big with one of those guys, a trade in the second round, late second round, Jackson, Smith, and Jigba, he could be there. I know a lot of people think that he's a first round guy. And a lot of that is because of the season he had 2 years ago. And no doubt about it, the kid's a special wide receiver. But some sources that I trust inside of NFL scouting circles, actual NFL teams, told me he entered the year with a 3rd round grade. 3rd round. He's not going to measure big. He's not going to run fast. He's a great on-field wide receiver, but we know that during draft season, wide receivers who don't run super fast or don't check in super tall, don't jump super high, they can kind of be had middle or late day 2. Jackson Smith-Njigba could be one of those guys. He doesn't look the part of a first-round receiver. He's probably not going to run like a first-round wide receiver. He didn't have the production because of injuries this year of a first-round wide receiver. And spoiler alert, he didn't begin the 2022 college football season as a first-round wide receiver. He could have elevated himself there, But I know guys have a 3rd round grade on him from the summer. And there's been no real football played to change that. So could he be had in the late 2nd round where the Bears currently had the Baltimore Ravens pick? It's possible. And if the Bears address edge rusher, defensive lineman, one of their early picks, do you kick the can of offensive line down the road a little bit in terms of draft and take a Jackson Smith-Njigba? I would swing on it. I'm sure you would swing on it too. We don't want to sit here like the Green Bay Packers and have Aaron Rodgers year over year over year ask for help and not get it. And then here he is. He's going to go out. Maybe he makes a playoff run here, but it's been ugly. It's been sad. I mean, for our Bears fans, it's been joyous maybe, but it's been sad to see an NFL great struggle the way he has this year because honestly, he's got a bunch of young guys who have high upsides, but they're not going to, the Packers have ignored helping him, I think, for too long. And it's learn a lesson or you're doomed to repeat it. Learn from another team's mistakes or you're doomed to repeat them. Don't let Justin Fields go year over year with the Velus Joneses of the world. Jackson Smith-Njigba is a high-quality prospect, probably can be had in the 2nd round. If you're not going to make a trade for one of these bigger names, that's kind of the wheelhouse where they have to go. So resolution number 1, get weapons for Fields. Don't screw that up. That's very easy. It's very easy to do that. Just sign, trade, draft. You have the ability to do all 3. Just pick one, do it, get a weapon for Justin Fields. And look, don't forget about tight end. Don't forget about tight end. Cole Kmet's a good football player. I have all the respect in the world for Cole Kmet, old school throwback type of football player. But we need an athlete here in Chicago, right? The Bears need a tight end who can stress a defense with speed, quickness, athleticism. Cole Kmet measures in like an athlete. You're going to get all the Cole Kmet advocates on Twitter put his, testing numbers and show that he's this great athlete. And that's fine, but sometimes it doesn't translate when you have the pads on. And for me, Cole Kmet's a lumbering, strong, big body tight end. He's had a very nice season, but I think Fields would be served well with like an Isaiah Likely type of player that you saw really excel in Baltimore earlier in the season. A player like that, they can be found in the middle rounds too. The wide receiver, traitsy tight end prospect. So keep an eye on tight end. I would like to see Ryan Poles hit one of them up too. Second New Year's resolution. This should be an absolute priority. Keep your franchise quarterback safe. Keep him healthy. Keep him upright. The best way to keep him safe, healthy, and upright, get some more offensive linemen on this roster who have pedigree. Free agency is how to do it. Overpay for above average. Pay top of the market salaries to above average offensive linemen. I know that might be bad spending. It might sound foolish to put all this money into guys who they're good, maybe not great, but good is way better than what the Bears have at center, what the Bears have at right tackle. And maybe if the whispers I'm hearing about Cody Whitehair are true, they might have a problem at left guard too. So the Bears have to dump resources into the offensive line. The problem, it's not really a problem, but the complication here is there's no way the Bears are going to use a first-round pick on an offensive lineman unless they trade back and out of the Will Anderson and Jalen Carter sweet spot. If they trade outside the top 5, then yeah, maybe somebody like the Ohio State offensive tackle, the Northwestern offensive tackle, these guys could be in play between like picks 8 and 12, 6 and 10. You could be now saying, all right, offensive tackle, one of these 2 guys is the priority. But you cannot, and we'll talk about this as my 5th resolution. Got to be careful how far you slide back in the first round. We'll talk about that in a minute. But in free agency, we did get a little bummer, right? Elton Jenkins re-signed with the Packers. Jack Conklin re-signed with the Browns. With just a couple weeks left in the season, they locked their guys up. They were 2 players that I had highlighted as possible big targets for the Bears in free agency. Elton Jenkins would have been dream come true. We're talking about a player who can play center, he can play guard, he can play tackle, he could play anywhere on the offensive line, and you would have paid him like that. I mean, he got paid a big, he got his money. But that's the kind of guy the Bears could have needed. The positional versatility is hugely valuable in the league, and especially if it's a player who has position versatility at an all-pro level. So kudos to the Packers for bringing him back. That's a bummer for the Bears because I think they were going to just blank check whatever he wanted. They were going to sign him. Conklin, I would have had a little bit of hesitation because of his injury history, but he still would have been plug and play right tackle for the Bears. No doubt about it. I mean, that's like plug and play. He's in, no questions asked. You have a starter for 4 to 6 years in Jack Conklin, depending on how long they sign him for. They're gone. Now they're going to have to go to that next tier of free agents. You have a guy like Orlando Brown, who's going to be a free agent. He's a left tackle. Does that mean Braxton Jones will go to right tackle? Who knows? Ryan Poles is going to have to do his due diligence on the interior offensive linemen who are scheduled to be free agents. But it doesn't matter. At this point, like, it doesn't matter. Anyone is better than Sam Mustipher. Yeah, Lucas Patrick is still kind of a great unknown, but even when he played this year, he was okay, like, whatever. I think the Bears can upgrade much, much more than a Mustipher or Lucas Patrick, Larry Borom, Riley Reef. I mean, you can get players who are better than that quality, that average to below average level of NFL starter. I mean, Sam Mustipher is below average. Larry Borom is an average guy. Riley Reef is an average guy. You want to get above average. You want to get to the good level. Tevin Jenkins has a chance to be really good at right guard. Braxton Jones has been above average at left tackle, almost to a good level. If you can round out a couple of these other spots with the above average to good level linemen, that's all you need with Justin Fields. Because you got to remember something. Justin Fields is the kind of quarterback who makes a good offensive line look great. Some of these analytics that you're seeing with the Bears offensive line actually scoring high on these advanced metrics, whether it's Pro Football Focus or ESPN's rankings, wherever you go, I mean, it's deceiving, right? I mean, part of the reason why the offensive line doesn't look absolutely horrific rep after rep, snap after snap, is because Justin Fields has pass rushers so afraid to pin their ears back and just go, because if he breaks the pocket, he breaks contain and is gone. That's game over mistake from a defensive edge, from an edge defender, inside linebacker. You let Justin Fields go, we've seen multiple times, 50-plus yard touchdown runs. Incredible. Excuse me. I get all choked up when I think about Justin Fields. So this is like obvious, almost Bears fan prayer to Ryan Poles. Don't ignore this second resolution. Keep him safe, dude. Keep Justin Fields safe. Because if that guy goes down, if Justin Fields has an injury that changes his path, like we saw with a guy like Robert Griffin III all those years ago at Washington, blew his knee out, dude was never the same. He took the league by storm as a rookie. He looked like he was going to be the next great one, right? The guy that was going to be like Michael Vick and all these ridiculous playmakers. He had the Josh Allen arm, the Michael Vick legs, and his body didn't hold up. He blew his knee out, and it was over. Done. That can't happen to Justin Fields. Okay, it can't, because Bears fans have literally sacrificed their souls for this guy to be finally here in Chicago. So please, resolution 1, get that man some weapons. Resolution 2, keep him upright. Get the offensive lineman. Here's an interesting one. Number 3. And it's something that not a lot of Bears fans are talking about right now. And it's a question that is going to be a very real, pressing issue that Ryan Poles has to figure out over the next couple of months. He has to get it right at running back. David Montgomery is going to be a free agent. Khalil Herbert is going to year 3, day 3 pick, cheapest rookie contract, cheapest running back contract, much better production than David Montgomery as a runner. Undeniable over the last 2 seasons. David Montgomery is the locker room culture guy. He's the guy that rallies the offense. He's a leader, team leader. Khalil Herbert probably hasn't been able to get to that point because there's another guy at his position, in his position room, on the depth chart, listed ahead of him. He's going to respect Montgomery's leadership role. Khalil Herbert's probably been blocked to ascend to that kind of status. But he's better than David Montgomery. I mean, I'm sorry. I know there's a lot of Montgomery fans. I am one of the biggest ones out there, but Khalil Herbert is better than David Montgomery as a running back. He's more explosive. He brings more to the running game. He is just more dynamic in the open field, and he's just better, right? David Montgomery's much better in pass protection. Khalil Herbert's got a problem there. Size. He's lighter. He's not as physical as Montgomery. That usually results in less effectiveness as a pass blocker. But he's just a better running back than David Montgomery is. So are you going to give David Montgomery a second contract? Are you going to pay him that like Leonard Fournette, $7 million a year, even $6 million a year type of money to come back because of his culture, leader, locker room persona? To me, that's very wasteful. I'd rather put that money into a wide receiver 3. Wide receiver 3s now are like $8 to $10 million a year. So like whatever you're going to give Montgomery, that could be a starting third wide receiver. I don't think Montgomery's coming back, Bears fans. I don't think he is. I think the only way he comes back is if the running back free agent market blocks him out, because this year's free agency at running back is going to be pretty ridiculous. You have Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, Miles Sanders. All these guys are better than Dave Montgomery. All of these guys will be the first choices or second choices or third choices for teams seeking a running back. And how often do we see turnover like that at starting running back in the offseason? It's not that often that you see teams, 3 or 4 or 5 teams, sign a new starting running back. You look across the league, how many teams are desperate for even a Miles Sanders or a Josh Jacobs? Every team could use a Saquon Barkley. But then when you get down to a David Montgomery level, I think he could struggle to find a market that's favorable for him, which could bring him back to Chicago on one of these like 1 year, $3 million type deals. I mean, is that going to be something that it's hard imagining David Montgomery coming back to Chicago on a contract like that, like full of juice and energy. He might be the kind of player that we see in Chicago on a series, 1 year deals to close out his career, because that's just probably where he's headed. But there's another thing I want you Bears fans to kind of chew on and think about. What if, with the most money to spend in free agency, Ryan Poles says, you know what, I'm going to create the atomic backfield. I'm going to go after Saquon Barkley, 26 years old, plenty of juice left in his legs, fully recovered from those injuries he had. He's why the Giants offense has a pulse. I'm going to go after Saquon Barkley, and I'm going to give defensive coordinators tremors, horrible nightmares, sweats and anxiety trying to game plan for our offense every single week. With Justin Fields and Saquon Barkley in the same backfield, whoever ends up with the ball can kill you on one play. Chase Claypool, Darnell Mooney, add another receiver in the draft or a trade or free agency as well. The Chicago Bears offense at the skill positions would be downright atomic, nuclear, whatever weapon of mass destruction you want to use here. That's what it would be. I get the whole running back valuation argument. I know you're going to tweet me at Brian Perez NFL, at the Bears Talk. You're going to say, what is wrong with you? The Bears are not a Saquon Barkley away. The Bears had the best rushing season the team has ever had. They were one of the best rushing teams in the league. What in the world would Saquon Barkley bring to the team to suddenly make us competitive? I get that. I get it. But Saquon Barkley is not a running back, just like Christian McCaffrey is not a running back. Saquon Barkley is an offensive weapon. Saquon Barkley would be the Bears' best wide receiver right now. So it's not paying a running back. You go into free agency and basically say, we are getting the best skill player available to pair up with Justin Fields. He will catch a whole lot of passes from Justin Fields. That helps Justin Fields. I don't care if there's an RB next to his name or a WR next to his name. It doesn't matter. He would catch 8 or 9 passes a game from Justin Fields. He would push for like 100 catches as a running back with the Chicago Bears. And that's not an exaggeration. He would. So the Giants are in a bind. Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley are both going to be free agents. You only have one franchise tag. So if they can't figure out the contracts here, you'd have to imagine they would franchise the quarterback and hope to get something done with the running back. You'd have to imagine that would be the case. You never know. Maybe Daniel Jones, the evaluation inside the Giants building isn't that high, but Saquon Barkley could hit the open market. And if he does, he is going to be the rare exception to the running back rule. He will have a line of teams wanting to bring him into their building. Imagine Saquon in Buffalo. I mean, imagine that. The Buffalo Bills have Devin Singletary, Zach Moss. They have James Cook they spent a second-round pick on. But would anybody argue the Buffalo Bills signing Saquon Barkley, Josh Allen and Saquon Barkley? What's the counter to that? Well, the Buffalo Bills are already a contender. They have the offensive line. They have Stephon Diggs. They have Gabe Davis. They have one of the best defenses in the league. So Saquon Barkley is the cherry on top. I completely understand, and I know that. But you don't get many swings at a Saquon Barkley. So to me, it's just something to file away. When you have as much money as the Bears have in this year's free agency cycle, they can splurge on luxury. Saquon Barkley is luxury. And Ryan Poles might say to himself, look, we are a running team. We need pass catchers. Let's get the best running back who can also be our best pass catcher. I don't know. 1 + 1 sometimes does equal 2, everyone. And this could be that simple. Poles get it right at running back. Number 4 on the New Year's resolutions. You got 2 more to go here, folks. Pass rushers. Oh, my Lord. We need some pass rushers in Chicago. We were spoiled last year with Robert Quinn's 18.5 sacks. I mean, that was a special season. Probably will never see it again. I mean, maybe now with the extra game on the NFL schedule, we're, like Bosa has, Nick Bosa has, 17.5 right now. It's possible if you end up with a guy like that, you could see these numbers more consistently. The Bears got a chance in the first round of the 2023 NFL draft. Will Anderson Jr. is a Nick Bosa type of pass rusher in terms of a prospect. So maybe I need to take that back and say we'll never see that again, because Will Anderson Jr., if he becomes a Chicago Bear, we will see that again. He'll be a 15 sack, 12 to 15 every year guy. And then that 15 sack in a career year type of scenario could be that 18, 19, 20. So that first round pick, Will Anderson, makes the most sense to me right now if they end up with the second pick. But still, much like we talked about earlier in the show, where you cannot just rest on Chase Claypool. You have to also add more than just a first-round pick to improve the team's pass rush. Yannick Ngakoue is a free agent. Marcus Davenport is a free agent. Not guys who are going to make you do cartwheels, but legitimate pro pass rushers who can disrupt. They can collapse the pocket. They can make an offense have to pay attention to where you are. They have to game plan for your physical presence. That matters. That matters not as much as actually the pressure and sacks, but it matters because the offense has to respect where you are. The Bears pass rush right now, it's like literally doesn't exist. It doesn't matter. Jaquan Brisker is the team's leading sacker. That is a problem. He's a rookie safety. That's horrible. It's great for Brisker, but horrible for the Bears defense. So pass rush seems obvious. Some of these all seem obvious. But losing weight, is an obvious resolution too, isn't it? Like everybody should get healthy every year. That's like an obvious desire we should all have, an obvious goal we all should have. Getting a good pass rusher or two or three seems like an obvious goal to improve your defense. So no brainer. Will Anderson for me at number one, or Yannick Ngakoue, Marcus Davenport. Let's get one of these, two of these, all of these guys in the Bears uniform next year, Ryan Poles. You have like literally no choice because you cannot go into another season where you have the least amount of sacks in the NFL. I mean, the Bears, I think, have 18 sacks right now as a team. That's like horrendous. Robert Quinn had 18 and a half alone last year. The Bears only have 18 as a team. I mean, that's embarrassing. Last but not least, and it's a New Year's resolution that I fully and firmly believe in, and I am going to get probably crushed on Twitter at Brian Perez NFL, at the Bears Talk. Don't get greedy in the NFL draft, Ryan Poles. Everybody on Twitter is hoping we get the number one pick, hoping that the number one pick comes to Chicago so it can be held for a king's ransom in a trade. Trade back with the quarterback needy team, recoup all these first round picks, and live to enjoy the fruits of that trade in future drafts. I get it. And some trades are obviously no brainers and too good to pass up, and we won't know until we know type deal. But sometimes you just got to take good players. You just got to draft an elite talent if there's one staring you in the face. And the Chicago Bears will have two staring them in the face this year with Will Anderson Jr. and Jalen Carter in the first round with the pick that they are probably going to end up with. You can't ignore what one player can do for your team. Will Anderson Jr., as a pass rusher, can transform the entire defense next season by himself. Will Anderson Jr. will make Kyler Gordon another level as a defensive back. Kyler Gordon not having to cover for the extra 2 seconds that he has to cover right now because the Bears have no pass rush makes Kyler Gordon less effective as a defensive back. Will Anderson, on the other hand, makes Kyler Gordon have to cover for less time. Makes a quarterback throw a panicked throw, and Kyler Gordon can now jump on the ball and make another interception. One player can sometimes have a greater impact on a team than 3 that you add with additional picks. Because that one special player can change everything. So Ryan Poles has to be very, very, very careful here. He has to be very careful not to let his eyes and stomach and hunger for more picks be bigger than football common sense, which is if you have the opportunity to draft a special player, draft him. Because there's a reason why Will Anderson's going to go third, fourth, why Jalen Carter is going to go third, fourth. They're the best in this draft. We've seen it before. I know Bears fans, guys have busted. Guys are described as best in the draft, and the players taken at number 18 or number 15 or number 45 end up having better careers. I get it. The draft is inherently a crapshoot. So the logic and theory of the more picks you have, the more lottery tickets you acquire, the better your chances are to hit. I get it. But Will Anderson's different. Jalen Carter's different. These guys feel like can't miss blue chippers. It's not every year that the top 5 picks, guys that are going to top 5, fall in that type of category. They're there. Just don't get too greedy, Ryan Poles. Don't let the appeal of the trade become the siren song that sinks the Bears' shorter-term outlook. Because Will Anderson could be a guy. Jalen Carter at the 3 technique could be a guy who by themselves levels up so many other talented guys around them that it's like adding all these additional picks. It's like adding all these other good starters. Because a guy like Kyler Gordon, a guy like Jalen Johnson, Eddie Jackson, Jaquan Brisker, that defensive backfield can be elite. Like, no joke, elite if the Bears have a good pass rusher, a pass rush. They can be elite. Jalen Carter, Will Anderson, they bring that to the defense. Don't overlook what one player can do versus 3 or 4 picks. Weapons for Fields, protection for Fields. Get it right at running back, Ryan Poles. Get that pass rusher and don't get greedy on draft weekend. Those are my Chicago Bears 2023 New Year's resolutions. I want to know your Chicago Bears 2023 New Year's resolutions. So make sure you hit me up on Twitter at Brian Perez NFL. It's Brian with a Y. You can hit the Bears Talk account up at The Bears Talk. We're over at Facebook. We have a page, The Bears Talk. Make sure you follow us over there. Subscribe and like the YouTube channel. Put comments, do whatever you got to do to get that engagement. We want to get as many subscribers as possible for obvious reasons. We want to grow the brand. You can help us do that. And make sure on your podcast feed, wherever you get your podcast from, subscribe to the Bears Talk podcast because we are now back. We are going to bring you your best offseason content, better than any other Chicago Bears podcast that's out there right now. Bears fans, we have an exciting time coming in Bears football land, in Bears universe. Free agency, the NFL draft, the era of Justin Fields has finally begun. This is the time. We're turning the corner. The Bears are turning the corner. But Ryan Poles has to do his part. He has to keep his resolutions. He has to bring the talent into Chicago. He has to be smart, and he has to target the right positions like we outlined today. It was great being back, Bears fans. Make sure you subscribe to the show, and we will check you out next time here on the Bears Talk podcast.